Well, back in March of this year, the county announced that there were plans or thought processes of increasing landfill fees. If you watched online the county commissioners meeting in what I can only describe as a comical situation, that proposal went down in flames for any number of reasons. Ron, we're talking about a $10 increase for maybe 7,000 people out of 50,000 in the county that use this, and the staff seemed to agree. The county administrator seemed to agree. I mean, he didn't implicitly say, I agree with this, but he was supporting it clearly in his comments. How did this fail?
Because it's politics.
It's an election year?
It's 100% not wise politics on the two people that pushed it for a while. And then the third person thought, I'm not going to get caught up in this, so he went along with them. And I don't blame him for going along. It's something hasn't happened in a long period of time, and on that whole process, they have taken money out of their fund balance to keep fees from going up.
Right.
Another area of where past leadership in the county, past leadership, not current, didn't do what they should have done to fund the fees at the landfill.
This is the Washington County version of robbing the Social Security Trust Fund.
Oh, it's pretty decent, yeah.
What say you?
It's a $10 increase, and obviously, as a government, you want to be as frugal as you can with the money that your taxpayers are giving you. Be responsible as possible with it. So I understand the desire not to raise the fees, but with these landfill fees in particular, it's been 6-7 years, and they haven't increased in any sort of price. Obviously, there's inflation, there's other expenses. Yeah, it's a service that the county's providing. I don't think that a $10 increase to dump waste at the landfill, especially over the course of a year, is a huge deal.
Yeah, it's not $10 every time you go. It's $10 increase a year. So if you buy a pass for an entire year, it costs you $10. That's not even $1 a month.
Again,
so I think it's
politics.
I think it's a healthy instinct for the government to not want to go and
You
take
think
as
that's
much
healthy?
money
I
as
don't think
possible.
that's healthy.
That's
because
not
what
even
they've
healthy.
done. No, I don't think that's healthy either. I agree with you, Ron.
Yeah, it's not healthy.
Because what they've done, in my view, is they've taken this shortfall that impacts maybe 7,000 residents, and now they've made it impact all 50,000. They're taking money out, and whatever the landfill equivalent of the flooding that we saw in South County in the last couple of weeks, when, not if that happens, we're not going to have the money in the reserves to pay for it. Ron and I and you are going to have to pay for it.
You didn't let me finish my point there.
Oh,
I think it's a healthy instinct to want to try to not increase fees and not increase the money that people are having to pay, but this is a situation where you also have to balance the budget and make sure that you have money for a rainy day like that. So this is a situation where, especially with something that hasn't been upped for the price in so long, I don't think it's a huge deal, but it's at least good that the elected officials aren't actively just raise taxes here. They're looking at other places, but I think that obviously raiding a rainy day fund that could be used for something like recovering from these floods in South County, you have to make sure that you have cash on hand to do that kind of thing.
All right, we've got a couple minutes left.
Yeah, but
I want to get into
there's one main thing you've not brought up. How about the $250,000 we're not talking about? The whole thing was Commissioner Kiefer talked about. He was hoping that there would be a way that by July, that the people that was given the money, the $250,000 to that waste to energy program, that they would get that back, and maybe this would be totally different. So we got to be thinking about that $250,000 that nobody ever wants to talk about where it went.
No, I agree with you, but the other thing we have to think about with regard to the waste to energy, and I see huge benefits in that if we can ever get it off the ground, but as we know, that company's had problems getting funding.
Well, the county was involved in it.
No, I understand that. I'm not saying we weren't.
They gave them the money.
I'm not saying we weren't derelict in our duties of due diligence. But my point is that, as one of the as our CFO from the county pointed out yesterday, as well as the landfill administrator, it's going to be 2 years. Even if best case scenario, that company comes back in July and says, hey, we're ready to go, it's going to be 2 years before we start seeing any appreciable money from that thing. So, to also to her point, and Commissioner Kiefer suggested, and I get his suggestion that let's wait a couple of months. Well, you can't go into a fiscal year without a balanced budget. Can't happen.
Not in the state of Maryland.
No, period. There is no
Or in
option
any
on
state.
that.
Every state's got a balanced budget.
Yeah, there is
requirement.
no option to that.
Yeah.
Now, here's the other thing. Let's talk about, you said earlier about drawing down the reserves. So one of the other commissioners, Commissioner Klein, suggested that we could draw down the reserves to pay this $400,000 shortfall. We've got about $350,000 in the reserve, as I understand it, so that doesn't quite make it. But there were some basic service levels. There was an FTE that they could not hire that maybe would get them back that. What are your thoughts on drawing down the reserve?
Absolutely not. I would not draw down the reserves. He knows better than that. Any county commissioner knows better than to draw down the reserve. Where's the reserves going to come in now to do something that you really need? You destroy your reserves, draw down. What did she say? You draw down your reserves, you don't have reserves and other fund balances, then Wall Street looks at your bond rating.
Our bond rating goes up, and that costs us hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So it was a penny wise and pound foolish decision from the three of them to do what they did.
Okay. All right. Any last words? We're out of time, but I feel like we've ignored you in this segment, and that's not a pleasant thing for me.
That's all good. It just make sure that you're balancing the budget. Make sure that the fiscal house is in order. You have to have the money to fund what you're going to need, and watch that bond rating definitely, because as soon as that credit rating goes down, the county is going to be paying a lot more in interest on loans and things like that. But it's a good instinct to want to not jack up prices on residents, but in some cases you have to make sure that you're making sure the fiscal house.
And the other point here is that whatever they jack the prices, taking something to the landfill directly is a whole lot cheaper than hiring someone to take it there. All right, coming up next, if you're looking for a job, you may want to think about crab picking because there's a shortage. We're going to talk about that in 3 minutes. Stay with us.